The Golden Girls, Growing Pains, and This Is Your Life.
Those may sound like the titles of TV shows, but in reality, they're things that made news this week and decades past. As we hear from Dave McKinley, back now with News 8 Then.
10 years ago this week marked by an unforgettably gritty performance in the vault by an already injured Carrie Strug. The U.S. women's gymnastic team shocked the world, winning their first ever and to this day only Olympic gold medal. But that triumph was soon marred by tragedy when a bomb exploded in the Olympic Centennial Park, killing one person and wounding more than 100 others. The security guard who found it, Richard Jewell, would be falsely implicated, while the real bomber, Eric Rudolph, would elude capture for almost 7 years after the events of this week in 1996. 20 years ago this week, a classic example of how something we don't know what we'd do without today was experiencing growing pains in its infancy. After being in existence for just 9 months, listen to what some were saying about the 911 system.
The city wants out. Some officials connected with the system now privately saying 911 is a failure and an expensive one.
It's evidently come a long way since this week in 1986. 30 years ago this week, Congressman Frank Horton was the talk of the town after he was caught driving drunk.
I think it's just sort of proving that he's human and everybody makes mistakes.
We all get drunk once in a while.
Horton, who had been in Congress for 14 years, would go on to serve another 16. And after President Ford declared it National Clown Recognition Week, our local politicians thought they'd follow suit with a proclamation of their own. And you almost know where this one's headed.
What's the biggest difference between you and the people that gave you the proclamation this morning?
The fellas that was here, the big fellas?
Right.
I tell you what, they get paid more for clowning around is what it is.
Some might say that's just as true today as it was this week in 1976. 40 years ago this week, state lawmakers approved a new money-making measure which voters would then have to approve on the November ballot. And among those diametrically opposed was Republican State Senator Tom Laverne of Irondequoit.
I think the people they're trying to help are going to be the most hurt because the poor are the ones that suffer the most from this kind of a device.
Pop quiz, what proposal by the state was he and so many others so much against this week in 1966? And if you remember those days, you might also recall what a perilous trek it could be just to set foot on Durand Eastman Beach, over the since-removed bermed embankment, down the steep incline, past the old Hojack rail bed, and then down another steep hill. These films capture a weekend invasion by a group of youngsters who volunteered to clean up litter. They were members of the Teenagers League for Responsible Citizenship and were led by a Monroe High School junior by the name of Tom Morse, who continues in his path to public service today as the Honorable Thomas R. Morse, Rochester City Court Judge. He's gone from the beach to the bench since the days of News 8 Then.
This is News 8 Now. Now the pop quiz. 40 years ago this week, debate raged over an issue that would go to the voters.
That's right, and State Senator Tom Laverne of Irondequoit was opposed. It was whether or not to establish a state lottery, and obviously those who were for it won it.